You already knew I'd choose him if he ever asked me, Jade smirked during dinner with her parents, swirling her wine glass like she was discussing the weather. The words hung in the air above the crystal stemware and bone china, settling over the dining room like poison gas. I didn't respond at all, just calmly stood up, folded my napkin, and placed it beside my barely touched plate of herb-crusted salmon. Thank you for dinner, Dr. Farrow, Mrs. Farrow. The meal was excellent as always. Jade's father cleared his throat uncomfortably. Her mother's fork paused halfway to her mouth, a piece of asparagus dangling precariously. They'd heard what their precious daughter just said, but they were pretending they hadn't. Classic Farrow family strategy: ignore the uncomfortable truth until it goes away. Wes, sit down, Jade said, her voice carrying that patronizing tone she'd perfected over our 7 years of marriage. I was just being honest. Isn't that what you always say you want? Honesty? I walked to the front door, grabbed my jacket from the antique coat rack that probably cost more than my monthly salary as an IT security manager. Drive safe, Jade. I'll see you at home. The October air outside felt crisp and clean after the suffocating atmosphere in that dining room. I sat in my Honda Civic for exactly 30 seconds, letting the reality sink in. My wife of 7 years had just announced to her parents that she'd leave me for Kellen Brooks, her gym buddy and apparent soulmate, the moment he made it official. The funny thing about betrayal is how it clarifies everything. All those late nights she claimed to be working at the defense contractor's office. All those girls' weekends that seemed to happen whenever I traveled for work. All those times she came home smelling like expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine. I drove home to our modest 2-bedroom house in Cedar Heights, the working-class section of town that Jade's parents tolerated because it was quaint and authentic. Translation: they were embarrassed their daughter married beneath her station. The house was dark when I arrived. I turned on every light and got to work. Jade had enough clothes to outfit a small army: designer dresses, shoes that cost more than my car payment, handbags that served no practical purpose except to display logos. I folded everything carefully. My mother raised me to respect other people's belongings, even when those people didn't respect me. It took 3 hours to pack her entire life into suitcases and boxes. I arranged everything neatly on the front porch, making sure nothing would get damaged if it rained. Then I called a locksmith who specialized in emergency services. "You sure about this, buddy?" asked Mike, the locksmith, as he installed new deadbolts on both doors. Middle of the night lock changes usually mean somebody's in trouble. "Just taking precautions," I said, handing him cash. "My wife and I are having some disagreements about boundaries." By 3 in the morning, the house was secure, and Jade's belongings were waiting outside like abandoned luggage at an airport. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, watching the street through the window. She came home at 3:47 a.m., still wearing the black dress from dinner, still smirking. The smirk lasted exactly until she saw her stuff on the porch. Then it died like someone had flipped a switch. She tried her key first, naturally. When it didn't work, she tried it again, harder, as if the lock would surrender to her determination. Then she started pounding on the door. "Wes, open this door right now. You can't do this." I opened the window above the porch. "Just did. Your things are packed carefully. Nothing's damaged. This is my house too. You can't lock me out." "Actually, I can. The house is in my name. The mortgage is in my name. You're welcome to contest it in divorce court." Her face went through several expressions: shock, anger, disbelief, then something approaching panic. "Divorce? Wes, don't be ridiculous. I was just being dramatic at dinner. You know how I get with wine." "I know exactly how you get, Jade. That's the problem." She stood there in her designer heels, looking up at me in the window, probably calculating her next move. Jade was always calculating. It's what made her good at her job as a legal aid, and what made her terrible at being a wife. "Where am I supposed to go?" I'm sure Kellen will figure something out. He seems resourceful. I closed the window and went to bed. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. The next morning, her stuff was gone from the porch. She'd left the house key on the doormat with a note. This isn't over. I crumpled up the note and threw it in the trash. Then I called my best friend Tyler. She actually said that? At dinner with her parents? Tyler's voice carried that mix of outrage and amusement that made him perfect for situations like this. He worked construction, had been married and divorced twice, and possessed an almost supernatural ability to see through people's nonsense. Word for word. You already knew I'd choose him if he ever asked me. Like she was doing me a favor by staying married until she got a better offer. And you just packed her stuff and changed the locks? Seemed like the logical response. Tyler laughed, a sound like gravel in a cement mixer. Man, I wish I'd thought of that with either of my exes. Usually takes me months of arguing and lawyers to get to the same place. I'm not done yet, Ty. This is just the opening move. What do you mean? I looked around my house now, and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Control. Jade thinks she's been playing chess while I was playing checkers. Time to show her what happens when the IT guy decides to play hardball. 3 days passed before Jade tried to contact me directly. She'd been calling and texting, but I'd blocked her number and set up an auto-reply directing all communication through attorneys. The silence was giving me space to think, and what I was thinking about was Ariel Seldor. Ariel was supposedly Jade's best friend from college, a tech consultant who specialized in data analysis for marketing firms. She'd been around constantly for the past year, always ready with advice about what Jade deserved and how modern marriages should work. She had opinions about everything: my job, my clothes, my lack of ambition to climb the corporate ladder. What bothered me wasn't her opinions, it was her timing. I pulled up my travel calendar for the past 18 months and cross-referenced it with Jade's text messages to Ariel. The pattern was so obvious I felt stupid for missing it. Every business trip I took, conferences in Chicago, security assessments in Denver, client meetings in Atlanta, Ariel would text Jade within hours of my departure. Girls' night, or time for some fun, or the cat's away. Ariel wasn't Jade's friend. She was her coordinator. I spent the weekend doing what I do best: digital investigation. Ariel's social media profiles showed her at restaurants and bars on the exact nights Jade claimed to be with her, but the timestamps were wrong. Photos supposedly taken at 8 p.m. were actually posted at 11 p.m. Location tags showed her at places across town from where Jade claimed they were meeting. The real revelation came when I checked the metadata on photos Jade had posted from their girls' weekends. Half of them were taken on weekdays when Ariel was posting from her office. The other half showed Jade alone, despite captions about crazy nights with my bestie. Ariel was providing Jade with alibis while doing something else entirely with her time, and I had a pretty good idea what that something was. On Monday, I drove to Murphy's Tavern, the bar where Ariel claimed to spend most of her evenings. It was the kind of place that attracted young professionals who wanted to feel edgy without actually taking any risks: exposed brick walls, craft beer, and bartenders with carefully groomed beards. Ariel was there, holding court at a high-top table with 2 other women I didn't recognize. She was in full storytelling mode, gesturing with her martini glass like a conductor's baton. The poor guy never saw it coming, she was saying as I approached. Jade's got him completely fooled. He thinks she's working late when she's actually... Actually what? I said, sliding into the empty chair at their table. The conversation stopped like someone had pulled a fire alarm. Ariel's face went through the same progression of expressions I'd seen on Jade's face 3 nights earlier: shock, anger, then calculation. "Wes, what a surprise! I didn't know you came to Murphy's." I don't, usually, but I wanted to thank you for being such a good friend to my wife. Ex-wife, I should say. Her two companions looked like they wanted to disappear. One of them mumbled something about needing to use the restroom and fled. The other suddenly remembered she had an early meeting and grabbed her purse. "I should probably go too," Ariel said, reaching for her phone. I was faster. Her phone slipped from her fingers and landed in the pitcher of beer at the center of the table with a satisfying splash. "Oops," I said. "Don't worry, most phones are water-resistant these days, though I'm not sure about beer-resistant." Ariel stared at her phone, now sitting at the bottom of a pitcher of Stella Artois, and her face went pale. Not the normal pale of someone who'd just lost an expensive device. The specific pale of someone who'd just lost something irreplaceable. "You have no idea what you just did," she whispered. "I have some idea. See, I've been wondering how Jade always knew exactly when I'd be out of town, how she always seemed to have the perfect excuse ready, how her spontaneous nights out always happened to coincide with my business trips." I reached into the pitcher and pulled out her phone, water and beer dripping from the case. "Turns out, coordination requires communication, and communication leaves traces." Ariel lunged for the phone, but I held it out of reach. The funny thing about being an IT security specialist is that you learn how these things work. Text messages, location tracking, app data, it's all stored somewhere. "Give me my phone." "In a minute. First, I want to understand the arrangement. Did Kellen pay you directly, or was it more of a favor for a favor situation?" Her eyes darted toward the exit, calculating distances. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. You've been Kellen's eyes and ears, haven't you? Tracking my schedule, giving Jade tactical advice on when to escalate their relationship, making sure they had windows of opportunity." I set the dripping phone on the table between us. "The question is whether you were doing it for money, for entertainment, or because you're just as invested in destroying my marriage as they were." Ariel grabbed the phone and tried to power it on. Nothing happened. "You ruined it." "I ruined a lot of things tonight. Your phone is just the beginning." She stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you figured everything out." "I think I've figured out enough. The rest I'll learn from other sources." "What other sources?" I smiled and pulled out my own phone, showing her the voice recording app that had been running for the past 10 minutes. "Thanks for confirming my theory about the coordination. That's going to be very useful in divorce proceedings." Ariel's face went from pale to flushed. "You recorded me without permission. That's illegal." "Actually, it's not. Single-party consent state. I can record any conversation I'm part of without telling the other person. Handy law for someone in my line of work." She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the exit, then turned back. "You have no idea what you're getting into, Wes. This is bigger than you think." "I'm counting on it." After she left, I sat at the table for another hour, nursing a beer and thinking about what she'd said. This is bigger than you think. That suggested layers I hadn't uncovered yet, connections beyond just Jade and Kellen and their affair. I called Tyler from the parking lot. "How'd it go?" he asked. "Better than expected. Turns out Ariel's been coordinating more than girls' nights. She's been running surveillance." "Surveillance? On who?" "On me, for Kellen. Maybe for other people too." Tyler was quiet for a moment. "Wes, what kind of work did you say Ariel does?" "Tech consulting, data analysis for marketing firms." "And what kind of work do you do again?" "IT security, government contracts mostly, defense contractors, federal agencies, some classified." I stopped talking as the implications hit me. "Yeah," Tyler said. "That's what I was thinking too. This might not just be about your marriage anymore." I drove home through the quiet streets of Cedar Heights, my mind racing through possibilities I didn't want to consider. If Ariel had access to my schedule, she had access to my client list. If she had access to my client list, she knew which government agencies I worked with. And if she knew that? I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car for a moment, looking at my house. It looked the same as always, modest, well-maintained, ordinary, but nothing felt ordinary anymore. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You should have minded your own business. I deleted the message and went inside to check my security system. Every door, every window, every motion sensor, everything was secure. But for the first time since this started, I wondered if security was enough. The call came at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after the dinner that changed everything. I was making coffee when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Wesley Harrow? Speaking. Agent Patricia Sloan, Federal Bureau of Investigation. I need to speak with you about some files that were recently accessed from your home office. I set down my coffee mug very carefully. I'm sorry. What files? Mr. Harrow, are you aware that your estranged wife, works for Meridian Defense Solutions? Yes, she's a legal aide there. And are you aware that she has security clearance to access classified materials? My kitchen suddenly felt very small. No, I wasn't aware of that. We need to meet, Mr. Harrow, this morning. There's something you need to know about your mother. The line went quiet, except for the sound of my heart pounding. My mother passed away 3 years ago. No, Mr. Harrow, she didn't. Agent Sloan suggested we meet at a coffee shop downtown, but I insisted she come to my house. If this conversation was going to happen, it was going to happen on my terms, in my space. She arrived 45 minutes later, a woman in her 50s with gray hair and the kind of steady gaze that suggested she'd seen everything at least twice. She showed me her credentials and accepted my offer of coffee. Your mother, Elena Harrow, didn't pass away in that car accident, she said without preamble. She was extracted and placed in witness protection. I stared at her. That's impossible. I was at the funeral. I saw the casket. You saw a closed casket containing sandbags and concrete blocks. Your mother was in a federal facility, recovering from injuries sustained during an assassination attempt. The coffee mug slipped from my hands and shattered on the kitchen floor. An assassination attempt? Your mother was a data analyst for the National Security Agency. She'd been documenting illegal surveillance programs, preparing to testify before Congress about constitutional violations. Someone wanted her silenced permanently. Agent Sloan pulled out a tablet and showed me a photograph. A woman who looked like my mother, but older, thinner, with different hair. She was sitting in what appeared to be a hospital room, reading a book. This was taken last week at Walter Reed Medical Center. She's been asking about you. Why are you telling me this now? Because 3 days ago, someone accessed classified files from your home office safe, files that belong to your mother, files that contain evidence of the surveillance programs she was investigating. My legs felt weak. I sat down hard in the nearest chair. Jade. We believe so. The access was traced to her security credentials at Meridian Defense. She copied encrypted files, probably thinking they were financial records related to your divorce. What kind of files? Agent Sloan's expression grew grim. Evidence of illegal surveillance operations targeting members of Congress, federal judges, and Supreme Court justices. Names, dates, recordings, financial transactions. The kind of information that could bring down administrations. And Jade has it. Had it. The files were transmitted electronically to an overseas server within hours of being copied. We're tracking the destination, but initial analysis suggests Russian intelligence services. I put my head in my hands. She doesn't know what she stole, does she? Probably not, but the people she's working with might. What people? Agent Sloan pulled out another photograph. Kellen Brooks, but not the gym-obsessed sales director I thought I knew. This was a surveillance photo showing him meeting with a man in an expensive suit outside a hotel. Kellen Brooks, also known as Dmitry Kozlov, also known as Klaus Brenner. He's a foreign intelligence operative who specializes in recruiting assets through romantic relationships. He's been married 6 times in the past decade, always to women with access to sensitive information. The room started spinning. Jade's not his first target. Or his last. We've been tracking him for 2 years, but he's careful. Uses different identities, maintains multiple residences, never stays in one place long enough for us to build a case. Until now. Until now. Your wife's theft of those files gives us leverage. We can charge her with espionage, or she can cooperate in bringing down Kellen's entire network. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the quiet street where I'd lived for 7 years. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that their neighbor's marriage had just become a national security issue. What about my mother? She wants to see you, but first, we need to resolve this situation with your wife. How? Agent Sloan closed her tablet. By giving Jade a choice. She can spend the next 20 years in federal prison, or she can help us catch Kellen and his handlers. And if she chooses prison? Then your mother remains in witness protection indefinitely, and you'll never see her again. The weight of it all settled on my shoulders like a lead blanket. My wife had betrayed me for a foreign spy. My mother was alive but unreachable. And somehow, I was caught in the middle of an international intelligence operation. There's something else, Agent Sloan said. The files your wife stole? They're not just evidence of surveillance programs. They contain the real names and locations of every federal witness in protection, including your mother. Meaning? Meaning if those files reach the wrong people, your mother and dozens of other witnesses could be targeted for elimination. I turned back to face her. What do you need me to do? Help us set up a meeting with your wife. Somewhere public, somewhere safe. We need to approach her before Kellen realizes what she actually stole. She won't trust me. Not after what happened with the locks and the divorce papers. She will if you tell her you want to reconcile. If you tell her you've realized you made a mistake. The idea of pretending to want Jade back made my stomach turn. But the alternative was losing my mother forever and potentially getting her eliminated by foreign operatives. When? Today. This afternoon. Every hour we wait increases the chance that Kellen figures out what he really has. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Jade's number, which I'd unblocked for the first time in 3 weeks. What do I say? Tell her you love her. Tell her you want to work things out. Tell her whatever she needs to hear to get her to meet you. I dialed the number and waited. Jade answered on the second ring. Wes? Is that really you? Hi, Jade. We need to talk. I've been hoping you'd call. I've been staying at Kellen's, but it's not what I expected. Can you meet me this afternoon? Somewhere neutral. Maybe that coffee shop on Main Street. You want to talk about reconciling? I closed my eyes and said the words that tasted like poison. I want to talk about saving our marriage. Oh, Wes. Yes. Yes, I'll be there. What time? 3 o'clock. I'll be there. And Wes, I love you. I know I haven't shown it lately, but I do. I hung up and looked at Agent Sloan. It's done. Good. We'll have agents positioned around the coffee shop. When you give the signal, we'll approach her. What's the signal? Order a second cup of coffee. We'll take it from there. After Agent Sloan left, I sat in my kitchen staring at the broken coffee mug on the floor. 3 weeks ago, my biggest problem was an unfaithful wife. Now I was part of a federal operation to catch foreign spies and save my supposedly deceased mother. I cleaned up the broken ceramic and tried to prepare myself for the performance of my life. I had to convince Jade that I wanted her back, long enough for federal agents to arrest her and flip her against Kellen. The irony wasn't lost on me. For 7 years, Jade had been acting like she loved me while planning to leave me. Now I had to act like I loved her while planning to destroy her. But first, I had to save my mother. Jade arrived at Brewster's Coffee 10 minutes early, which surprised me. Punctuality had never been her strength, but desperation apparently was a powerful motivator. She'd chosen a table by the window, probably so she could watch from my car. She looked different, thinner, more anxious. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she was wearing jeans instead of her typical business attire. This was Jade trying to look approachable, vulnerable, worthy of forgiveness. I ordered a black coffee and sat down across from her. Agent Sloan had positioned herself at a table near the back, pretending to read a newspaper. 2 other agents were outside, posing as a couple walking their dog. "You look good," Jade said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "I've missed you." "I've missed you too." The lie came easier than I expected. These past few weeks have been difficult. For me, too. Staying at Kellen's, it's not what I thought it would be. "What do you mean?" Jade looked around the coffee shop nervously. "He's different when you're around him all the time, more controlling. He goes through my phone, asks where I'm going, who I'm talking to. It's like he doesn't trust me. Maybe he's just protective. Or maybe he's paranoid. He has these friends who come over at weird hours. They speak in languages I don't recognize, and they ask a lot of questions about you." My pulse quickened. "Questions about me?" "About your work, what kind of clients you have, whether you bring files home." She leaned forward. "Wes, I think I made a mistake. A big mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "I took something from your office, from the safe. I thought they were financial records, something I could use in the divorce proceedings. But when I gave them to Kellen—" "You gave my files to Kellen?" Jade's eyes filled with tears. "He said they were worthless, just encrypted nonsense. But then he made all these phone calls, and suddenly these other people started showing up at his apartment. This was it, the moment Agent Sloan was waiting for. I raised my hand to signal the waitress, the predetermined sign that Jade was ready to be approached. "Jade, those files you took, I know they were important to you. That's why I want to give them back. I want to make this right." "You can't give them back. Not anymore." "What do you mean?" Agent Sloan appeared at our table before I could answer. "Mrs. Harrow, Agent Patricia Sloan, Federal Bureau of Investigation. I need you to come with me." Jade's face went white. "FBI? Wes, what's happening?" "The files you stole from your husband's safe contain classified information related to national security," Agent Sloan said calmly. "You're under arrest for espionage." "Espionage? That's impossible. I just took some papers from my own house." "Papers that belong to the National Security Agency. Papers that have since been transmitted to foreign intelligence services." Jade looked at me desperately. "Wes, tell her this is a misunderstanding. Tell her I didn't know what those files were." "I believe you didn't know," I said. "But that doesn't change what happened." Agent Sloan placed handcuffs on Jade's wrists with practiced efficiency. "You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney." As the Miranda rights were read, Jade stared at me with a mixture of betrayal and disbelief. "You set me up." "No, Jade. You set yourself up. I just helped you understand the consequences." "Mrs. Harrow," Agent Sloan said, "you're facing 25 years to life in federal prison. But there is another option." "What option?" "Cooperation. Help us arrest Kellen Brooks and his network, and we'll consider a plea agreement." Jade looked around the coffee shop, suddenly aware that other customers were staring. "I want a lawyer." "That's your right, but understand that every hour you delay, the harder it becomes to protect you from the people Kellen works for." "What people?" Agent Sloan leaned closer. "The kind of people who eliminate loose ends. The kind of people who don't leave witnesses." Jade's composure finally cracked. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what those files were. I just wanted something to use against Wes in the divorce." "I believe you. But your ignorance doesn't protect you from the consequences of your actions." "What do you want me to do?" "Wear a wire. Go back to Kellen's apartment. Get him to admit what he did with those files. He'll know something's wrong. He's suspicious of everything. Then you'll have to be convincing. Your life depends on it." Agent Sloan helped Jade to her feet. "We're going to take you to a federal facility for processing. You'll have time to think about our offer." As they walked toward the exit, Jade turned back to look at me one more time. "Wes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about everything." I nodded but didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. After they left, I sat alone at the table, staring at Jade's untouched latte. 3 weeks ago, she'd humiliated me at her parents' dinner table. Now she was facing federal espionage charges. My phone buzzed with a text from Agent Sloan. "Phase 1 complete. Time to meet your mother." I paid for both coffees and walked to my car, wondering if I'd ever see Jade again, and wondering if I wanted to. The drive to Walter Reed Medical Center took 90 minutes through Washington traffic. Agent Sloan met me in the parking garage and escorted me through a series of security checkpoints that required biometric scans and background verification. "She's been waiting for this day for 3 years, Agent Sloan said, as we walked down a sterile corridor, but she's also been dreading it." "Why?" "Because seeing you means her cover is blown. It means the life she built in witness protection is over." We stopped outside a room marked only with a number. Agent Sloan knocked twice, paused, then knocked 3 times. "Elena, your son is here." The door opened, and I saw my mother for the first time since her supposed funeral. She looked older, frailer, but unmistakably alive. She was wearing civilian clothes instead of a hospital gown, and her hair was shorter than I remembered. "Wesley." Her voice was exactly the same. I stepped into the room, and she embraced me, and for a moment I was 8 years old again, coming home from school to find her making dinner in our tiny kitchen. "I thought you were gone," I whispered. "I had to be gone. It was the only way to keep you safe." We sat on the narrow hospital bed, and she told me everything: the surveillance programs she'd uncovered, the evidence she'd gathered, the assassination attempt that nearly succeeded. "I've been living under the name Margaret Chen for 3 years, she said. "Working as a data entry clerk in a small town in Oregon. It's been the loneliest 3 years of my life." "Why didn't you contact me?" "Because they told me you were safer if you thought I was gone, and because I knew that someday my work would catch up with me. The files in my safe, backup copies of everything I documented. I gave them to you because I trusted you to keep them secure. I never imagined your wife would steal them." Agent Sloan cleared her throat. "Mrs. Chen, Elena, we need to discuss next steps. Your location has been compromised. We need to move you." "Where?" "New Zealand. We have an arrangement with their government for witness relocation." My mother looked at me sadly. "It means I disappear again, permanently this time." "Unless we can neutralize the threat," Agent Sloan said. "If we can arrest Kellen's entire network, if we can recover those files and identify everyone who accessed them, then Elena might be able to live openly again." "What are the chances of that?" "Depends on whether your wife cooperates, and depends on whether Kellen trusts her enough to incriminate himself." My mother took my hand. "Wesley, I need you to know that whatever happens to me, I'm proud of you. You've built a good life, and you don't deserve to be caught up in this. I'm already caught up in it, and I'm going to see it through." Agent Sloan's phone buzzed. She checked the message and frowned. "We have a problem. Kellen Brooks just left his apartment with 2 suitcases and a laptop bag. He's heading for the airport." "He's running? Or he's been ordered to run. Either way, we're losing our window to arrest him." I stood up. "What about Jade?" "She's agreed to cooperate. But if Kellen's gone, there's no one for her to cooperate against." My mother squeezed my hand. "Then you'll have to stop him yourselves." "How?" "The same way you stopped your wife. By being smarter than he is." Agent Sloan was already heading for the door. "We need to move. If Kellen gets on an international flight, we may never see him again." I kissed my mother's forehead. "I'll see you soon." "I hope so, Wesley. I really hope so." As we rushed toward the parking garage, I realized that the game was far from over. Jade was in federal custody, but Kellen was still free. And somewhere out there, foreign intelligence services had access to files that could destroy my mother and dozens of other protected witnesses. The coffee shop trap had worked perfectly. Now we needed a bigger trap. And I had an idea. The plan was simple in concept, complex in execution. Kellen Brooks was heading for Dulles International Airport with classified files that belonged to the United States government. We had maybe 2 hours to stop him before he disappeared forever. Agent Sloan made phone calls during the drive, coordinating with airport security and TSA. But bureaucracy moves slowly, and international intelligence operatives move fast. "He's booked on a Lufthansa flight to Frankfurt," she said, hanging up from her latest call. "Departs in 3 hours. From there, he could go anywhere." "What about Jade? Can't she call him? Delay him somehow?" She tried. He's not answering his phone. I thought about Kellen Brooks, the man I'd believed was just an overly confident gym rat stealing my wife. In reality, he was Dmitry Kozlov, a professional spy who'd spent 2 years infiltrating my life through Jade's seduction. "He's not running because he's scared," I said. "He's running because his mission is complete." "What do you mean?" "Think about it. He got the files. He transmitted them to his handlers. His job here is done. Jade was never the prize. She was just the access point." Agent Sloan's phone rang. She listened for a moment, then cursed under her breath. "Kellen just checked in for his flight. He's already through security." "Can you stop the plane?" "Not without probable cause, and suspicion isn't enough to ground an international flight." I stared out the window as we approached the airport. Somewhere in that massive complex, a foreign spy was preparing to escape with information that could destroy my mother and countless other innocent people. "I have an idea," I said. "But you're not going to like it." "Try me. Let me talk to Jade, not as part of your operation, as her husband. There might be something she knows about Kellen that she hasn't told you." Agent Sloan considered this. "She's being held at a federal facility 20 minutes from here, but I don't see how—" "Trust me. Sometimes the most important information comes from the smallest details." We changed course and headed for the Federal Detention Center. Jade was being held in a conference room, still wearing the clothes she'd worn to the coffee shop. She looked up when I entered, hope flickering in her eyes. "Wes? Are you here to—" "I'm here to ask you some questions about Kellen." Her face fell. "I already told them everything I know." "No, you told them everything you think is important. I want to know about the little things, the habits, the quirks, the details that seemed insignificant." Jade looked confused. "What kind of details? When you stayed at his apartment, what did he do in the mornings? What did he eat for breakfast? Where did he keep his phone while he slept?" "I don't understand why that matters." "Because I know you, Jade. You notice everything, you remember everything, and somewhere in those memories might be something that helps us stop him." She was quiet for a moment, thinking. "He was obsessive about his phone. Never let it out of his sight, even in the shower. But there was this one morning—" "What happened?" "He got a call while he was making coffee. He answered it in another room, spoke in what sounded like Russian. When he came back, he was agitated." "What did he say?" "He said he had to accelerate his timeline, that something had changed, and he needed to wrap things up quickly." "When was this?" "The morning after I gave him your files." I felt a chill. "Jade, think carefully. Did he make any other calls that day?" "Several. All in foreign languages, but there was one call he made in English." "To who?" "I don't know, but I heard him say something about the package being ready for delivery and confirming the New Zealand route." New Zealand. The same place Agent Sloan had mentioned as my mother's potential relocation destination. "Jade, this is important. Did you ever see Kellen with any official documents? Passports, visas, anything like that?" "He had multiple passports, different names, different countries, but there was one he kept in a special case." "What was special about it?" "It looked official, but not like a regular passport. More like some kind of diplomatic document." I stood up quickly. "Agent Sloan, We need to go, now. What did you figure out? Kellen's not just running away. He's going to New Zealand to intercept my mother. Agent Sloane's face went pale. That's impossible. Her location is classified. Her relocation destination isn't. You told me about New Zealand in front of Jade. If she mentioned it to Kellen, he could have people waiting for her when she arrives. We raced back to the airport, Agent Sloane making urgent phone calls to redirect my mother's transport. But bureaucracy moves slowly, and my mother was already in the air. The plane carrying your mother left an hour ago, Agent Sloane said. It's a 14-hour flight to Auckland. If Kellen's people are waiting, then we stop Kellen before he can coordinate with them. How? He's already through security. I thought about everything I'd learned about Kellen Brooks, aka Dmitry Kozlov. Professional spy, multiple identities, careful and methodical. But also arrogant. Confident in his ability to stay ahead of American law enforcement. What if we make him think he's already won? What do you mean? Call him. Tell him we've arrested Jade, but she didn't give us any useful information. Tell him we have no idea who he really is or what he's done. Why would that bring him back? Because he left something behind, something important. What? Jade. Agent Sloane looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Kellen doesn't care about Jade. She was just a tool. You're right. But he does care about making sure his tools can't be used against him. I pulled out my phone and dialed Kellen's number, putting it on speaker so Agent Sloane could hear. He answered on the third ring. Wes, this is unexpected. Hello, Kellen. Or should I call you Dmitry? There was a long pause. I'm not sure what you're talking about. The FBI has Jade. They know about the files. They know about your real identity. That's unfortunate for Jade, but I'm afraid I can't help you. Actually, you can, because Jade told them everything. About your apartment, your contacts, your plans. Another pause, longer this time. Jade doesn't know anything useful. She knows about the New Zealand operation. The silence stretched for almost 30 seconds. When Kellen spoke again, his voice was different, colder. What do you want? I want to make a deal. Jade's cooperation in exchange for your safe passage out of the country. You're not in a position to make deals. Actually, I am, because I have something you need. What? The original files. The ones Jade copied were encrypted backups, but I have the originals, with all the decryption keys. This was a lie, but Kellen had no way to verify it. Even if that were true, why would you give them to me? Because I want my wife back, and I want my life back. The FBI is offering Jade a deal, but only if she testifies against you. If you disappear forever, she takes the fall for everything. And you care about that? I care about not being married to a federal prisoner for the next 20 years. Agent Sloane was staring at me, probably wondering if I'd actually lost my mind. But I could hear something in Kellen's voice. Interest. Calculation. Where would this exchange take place? Somewhere public, somewhere safe. The food court at Dulles near your gate. You're asking me to walk into a trap. I'm asking you to walk into a trade. You get the files you actually need. I get my wife back. Everyone wins. And the FBI? The FBI gets nothing. No files, no testimony, no conviction. Kellen was quiet for a long time. 1 hour. Food court, level 3. Come alone. I'll be there. After he hung up, Agent Sloane grabbed my arm. Are you insane? You just promised to give classified files to a foreign spy. No, I promised to give him files that don't exist. The originals were destroyed when my mother went into witness protection. Then what's your plan? Simple. When Kellen shows up, you arrest him. He's not going to show up. He's too smart for that. He'll show up, because he's not just smart, he's arrogant. And arrogant people always think they're the smartest person in the room. Agent Sloane shook her head. This is the worst plan I've ever heard. It's also the only plan we have. An hour later, I was sitting in the Dulles Airport food court with a briefcase full of old tax returns and expired insurance policies. Agent Sloan and her team were positioned throughout the terminal, trying to look like ordinary travelers. Kellen appeared exactly on time, approaching my table with the confidence of a man who believed he was in control. "Wes, you look nervous." "I am nervous. I'm committing treason." He sat down across from me, glancing around the food court. "Where are the files?" I tapped the briefcase. "Right here. But first, I want to see proof that you can get Jade's charges dropped." "I can't get her charges dropped, but I can make sure she doesn't testify against me." "How?" Kellen smiled, and for the first time I saw the predator behind the charming facade. "By making sure she has an accident before the trial." "You're talking about eliminating her." "I'm talking about tying up loose ends." I reached for my coffee cup, the signal for Agent Sloan to move in. But before she could react, Kellen stood up. "Unfortunately, Wes, you're also a loose end." He reached inside his jacket, and I saw the grip of a pistol. But before he could draw it, Agent Sloan appeared behind him, with her weapon already drawn. "Federal agent, don't move!" Kellen froze, his hand still inside his jacket. Around the food court, other agents were revealing themselves, weapons drawn, exits blocked. "Dmitry Kozlov," Agent Sloan said, "you're under arrest for espionage, conspiracy, and threatening a federal witness." As the handcuffs clicked into place, Kellen looked at me with something approaching respect. "You played that well. I had good teachers. My wife taught me about deception. You taught me about patience. And what did you teach yourself?" I stood up and closed the briefcase full of worthless papers. That sometimes the best revenge is just doing the right thing. Agent Sloan led Kellen away, and I sat back down to finish my coffee. In a few hours, my mother would land safely in New Zealand, no longer hunted by foreign operatives. Jade would serve a reduced sentence in exchange for her cooperation, and Kellen Brooks would spend the rest of his life in federal prison. 3 weeks ago, my biggest problem was an unfaithful wife. Now I was helping the FBI catch international spies. My phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. "How did it go?" I typed back, "Better than expected. Turns out I'm pretty good at this revenge thing." "What's next?" I looked around the airport terminal, watching ordinary people living ordinary lives, unaware that their safety had just been secured by extraordinary measures. Next, I go home and figure out how to build a new life. Alone? I thought about Jade, sitting in a federal detention center, facing the consequences of her choices. I thought about my mother flying toward a new life in New Zealand. I thought about myself, finally free from the web of lies and manipulation that had defined my marriage. "Yeah," I typed, "alone. And that's exactly how I want it."